It is our favorite time of the week again. Time for hashtag Rising Qs when we get to answer your questions. Saagar, what is up first?
Number one, how many Senate seats are up for election in 2022, not including the 5 GOP leaving? So when Joe Manchin won't be on my mind when we need to pass progressive bills.
Excellent question.
Excellent question.
There's always a third of the seats up, so 34 right. This time around. 20 of them are held by Republicans. 14 of them are held by Democrats. So in theory, Republicans have a tougher map. However, given the nature, number one, of the undemocratic nature of the Senate, but number two, historically, the way that the party in power does in the midterms, it's going to be tough sledding for Democrats. So some of the seats that people have their eye on, Wisconsin is one, Ohio, because it's now an open seat, still going to be really hard for Democrats, but you never know, they could make something crazy happen. Sherrod Brown is obviously the other senator there. Pennsylvania, we've been covering John Fetterman here and the Democratic primary, the way that's unfolding. North Carolina, Florida, those are some of the big ones that people are kind of looking at. Many of the Republican seats are in relatively friendly terrain. Democrats have to defend also in Georgia, in Arizona, in Nevada, so they have some tough holds that they have to do too. It's all just going to depend on, I think you'd have to say, most smart analysts, I believe, see Democrats as at a disadvantage, not only because of the seats that they have to defend and where they'd have to pick up, but just because of the nature of how the party in power normally does in the midterms. Historically, it is very, very difficult. They would have to match the best ever performance for the party in power in the past 40 years, which was 2002 Republicans after 9/11. Tough to replicate that.
The real tests are Georgia and Arizona. Mark Kelly and with Raphael Warnock. If those two people who won in 2020 cannot win again, then it shows that it was a fluke, so to speak, like a Trump fluke. And if they can win again, it shows that an entire realignment has occurred in American politics. So I do think, and I think they really are one of I don't think it's a case where one would lose and one might win. I really think because of the margin of victory for Biden in both states was roughly equal in terms of how small it actually was, it will either increase and they will both stay or they'll both lose.
Interestingly, Warnock has been the most popular politician in Georgia. So far he seems to be positioning himself well. All right, the second question is, since the moderates, corporate extremists, well put, in Congress are serving the big donors, could populist movements have success publicly lobbying big donors to pressure those congressmen? What do you think, Saagar?
No. I mean, look, there is something to what you're saying, but many of these big donors do not care about populist politics and more. That being said, you can shape kind of the overall environment to make it so odious for people to back certain causes that they may not actually distribute money. So you're never going to win a victory whenever it comes to making these people advocate for what you want. But sometimes the absence of an opposition is also a tacit defeat. I'll give you an example. There's very few people who are going to be flacking for lack of China tariffs in America these days. It's just not going to happen in a post-COVID environment with public opinion, maybe one or two different interest groups. So if you can dramatically change public opinion, then you'll change the way that people act within the public. But don't make a mistake of thinking they're going to be on your side.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I think more promising are some of the efforts we've covered here to make politicians pay in their own state when they are out on a limb on an issue that's wildly unpopular in their state. So if they're voting against the minimum wage, and the minimum wage is really popular, if they're sticking with the filibuster, even though their constituents say, hey, we'd rather get major legislation passed here, I think that's the place where the pressure will be built. I wouldn't be relying on any corporate titans to help us out in that regard. All right, Saagar, what's the last one?
Number one, what the hell is a parliamentarian? Why, until Joe Biden elected, have I never heard of the parliamentarian? Why is a parliamentarian more powerful than the POTUS? That's a great question.
Very good. I just looked it up. According to Wikipedia, just for an official-ish definition, is the official advisor to the United States Senate on the interpretation of the standing rules of the United States Senate. So basically, the rules of the Senate are extraordinarily complex. Like very, very, very complex. And even people who, like Mitch McConnell or Chuck Schumer or even a Harry Reid, who have done this a lot and are extraordinarily well steeped in the very peculiar rules and maneuvers of the Senate, still would have things that are a question or where a judgment call would need to be made. The Senate parliamentarian is there to be their guide, to rule on these things. But to even say rule is very misleading. It's just guidance. That's all it is. It's just advice.
It's not binding.
Hey, here's what I think you can do. Here's what I don't think you can do. Here's what the rules say and how I'm interpreting them. When Republicans got a ruling from the parliamentarian they didn't like.
In 2001.
They just got a new parliamentarian, right? This person can be overruled. It's just non-binding advice, but it's a great excuse for Democrats who didn't really want to do the $15 minimum wage hike anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. More Rising for you later today.